On Sunday, December 1st, hundreds protested in Toronto, Canada. The demonstrators gathered in freezing weather outside the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, where thousands attended the JNF honoring dinner for Stephen Harper, the Canadian Prime Minister.
We're here because we know that just behind these walls, Stephen Harper is supporting Israeli policies. And what we want Stephen Harper to know is that Palestine will be free. So, Harper, you will see Palestine will be free. Harper, you will see Palestine will be free.
The mega fundraising event, organized by the Jewish National Fund, attracted Canadian public officials and major donors to Israel and the JNF. David Koshinsky, the chair of the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, said this was an opportunity to thank the Prime Minister for his steadfast friendship and support over the years. A recorded message by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was screened at the dinner.
You've chosen wisely. Stephen Harper has proved to be a real leader. And a real leader doesn't follow the herd. A real leader doesn't go by existing fashion. That's not to lead, that's to follow. But Stephen leads, and he has stood up for Israel, and he stood up for the truth time and time again.
At the luxurious dinner, where tables cost as high as $100,000, the JNF announced a bird sanctuary in northern Israel will be built and named after Stephen Harper. In return, Harper performed his own surprise for the crowd.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
Harper has been one of the most fervent supporters of Israel. Under his leadership, military and financial ties with Israel tightened. His administration stood behind Israel on all diplomatic fronts as well. In the UN, Canada was one of only 9 countries who stood against 138 others when it refused to support the symbolic upgrade of the Palestinian Authority to the status of an observer state. More recently, Canadian Foreign Minister John Baird announced Canada will not lift its sanctions on Iran despite last week's Geneva agreements. The Jewish National Fund, or the JNF, is a registered charity in Canada, known mostly for planting trees in Israel. While it positions itself as a green organization, it was started over 100 years ago for the purpose of purchasing land in historic Palestine for Jewish settlement. The JNF has played a vital role in Israeli politics, in the distribution of land after the state was created, and as some claim, in the erasure of Palestinian history from its landscape.
קק"ל זה גוף שכבר קיים הרבה שנים, ועוד מלפני קום המדינה, ויש לה חלק בעצם בהעלמה של הכפרים מהתודעה של הישראלים. זה התחיל עוד כבר מבחינה פיזית, שבכירים בקק"ל תמכו וניסו לשכנע גורמים בממשלה להרוס כפרים ולמחוק את השרידים שלהם. והמשיך במדיניות של קק"ל לטעת חורשות, בין היתר להריסות של כפרים, כדי להסוות את השרידים שנותרו מהם.
Noga Codman is a historian and the author of the renowned book Erased from Space and Consciousness, where she carefully documents the first years of the Israeli state following the 1948 war, during which 2/3 of the Palestinians were made refugees.
זאת אומרת שנטיעת עצים בישראל יש לה כל מיני רבדים מעבר לתת צל ולהוסיף צמחייה ירוקה. וצריך להסתכל על כל מקום, על ההיסטוריה של המקום, מה היה בו קודם ומה בעצם החורשה מכסה ומה היא מונעת, אם היא מונעת פיתוח והתיישבות של אנשים שגרים שם או שמחזיקים באדמות או שהשתמשו בהם עד אז. כמובן שיש מקרים שקק"ל נוטעת חורשות וזה מבורך וכולם נהנים מזה, אבל יש הרבה מקרים שקק"ל נוטעת חורשות על מקומות שהיו שם כפרים ערבים ונוטעת את החורשות על השרידים שלהם או על אדמות של כפרים או בסמוך לכפרים ערבים קיימים שזה מונע את ההתפשטות וההתרחבות שלהם.
Protests against the JNF have led to a worldwide movement in recent years. In Israel, activists in a group calling itself the New JNF handed out flyers in central Tel Aviv last week. The group's name is a parody and has no links to the actual organization. The activists claimed this new JNF has learned its lesson and even decided to change its position, admitting its forests cover up some of the hundreds of villages destroyed in 48.
אנחנו קק"ל החדשה, זה הלוגו החדש שלנו. אנשים בכלל לא שמעו, לא הכירו, הם יודעים את השמות החדשים, השמות הציוניים של היערות האלו, אבל לא יודעים מה יש מתחתיהם, אז קק"ל החדשה באה ללמד את האנשים על המציאות הזאת.
The flyers the activists gave out in Tel Aviv include a link to a fake blog where Rafi Stendler, claiming to be the chairperson of the new JNF, writes about the role the company has played in the erasure and destruction of Palestinian history. The author's name is but a slight alteration of the JNF's actual chairperson, Effi Stenzler. On this fake blog, Rafi writes, 65 years ago, there was an entire culture here that we have destroyed to establish a Jewish state, whose ruins are covered up by JNF forests. In the blog, Rafi documents several places where through signage and forestation, the JNF erased local Palestinian and Muslim history. On the real JNF's website, a different kind of letter by its real chairperson tells another story. Here, Effi Stenzler writes, over the years, we have developed thousands of projects that have changed the face of the country. JNF forests are vital to Israel's landscape and environment. In its mandate, the JNF writes simply that its work is aimed at the benefit of the Jewish people and not all the citizens of Israel. But receiving millions of dunams of state lands gave it the status of a semi-governmental body. Even today, JNF forests are being used to dispossess the indigenous Bedouin in the Negev desert, as the Real News has documented in recent years. It is after this dispossession that the dinner in Toronto was named. Despite the Real News' repeated attempts to solicit a response, the JNF refused to comment. Speaking to the Jerusalem Post, the organizers of Sunday's dinner called the protests an attempt to delegitimize Israel, saying the JNF and its supporters all over the world will continue to strengthen the State of Israel with all of its strength and will act fearlessly to reinforce it. Simultaneously, Stephen Harper announced he will visit Israel in January. For the Real News, I'm Leah Terechansky in Tel Aviv.